first time in my life I'm truly free to see the clear-cut forest for the poison sea, to see the waters occupy the shores of Jersey, and I feel alive.
Welcome back to Calfire Crackpots, the only show that puts the crackpots in climate change, because we are talking about desalination today, isn't that right?
That is right. Oh, we love our great state of California and their ever ongoing water issues.
You know, it's weird how many weird pictures I can find of Gavin Newsom doing random stuff.
God, there was the one when we were on with
The
Psychic
one
Dolphin Garage, the weird
with
state of the
with him
state
flexing.
address.
Oh
I've
yeah,
never
okay.
that too actually. There are a
With
lot
the
of
one
weird ones.
with him frowning like really intensely.
This is like oh my god. If you search up like normal photo of Nicolas Sarkozy, you have to scroll for a dishearteningly long time before you find like one of him looking like a regular person.
Well, no, with Gavin Newsom. So the State of the State address is normally something governors do, and it's like super, like no one gives a fuck about it, and it's like them just talking about how great their state is and what happened, and it's usually like in front of the state legislature, and no one cares. So our very special boy Gavin Newsom decided to do it in an empty Dodger Stadium while there was a police helicopter chase going on outside. And then at the very end, he did that frown and then walked away, wife in his arm, with California stars playing in the background. I shit you not. That is what happens.
I It's weird to believe that at one point a movie star was from who was from Germany was California's governor, and this seems like even more sensational and out there than that.
It's hard to believe,
What was his
but
approval rate?
it's actually pretty good. He's an absolute shoo-in for the next election.
Yeah.
No one's gonna beat him. Just like no one's gonna beat our special boy JB.
Oh, big guy. Yeah.
Big guy. But JB, I am a JB fan.
He's pretty good. Yeah. He's
Yeah,
handled things pretty well.
and he hasn't gone to prison, which for an Illinois governor is good.
Not visibly corrupt. That puts him better than about half of them.
Yeah, and it's like, well, more than half. 4 of the last 7 have gone to prison.
My God, yeah.
Well, anyway, so can desalination save California? Short answer is no. Long answer is maybe. Let's get into the long answer. Well, because maybe is 3 letters longer than no, so that's why. All right, but first we have news.
Oh my
So
God.
there's a few news items, and I'm gonna save the best for last here. So the Queen has COVID.
The- The Queen has COVID.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Queen of England with
She's
COVID.
gonna turn into dust, Infinity War style.
I don't know. Literally every world leader, no matter how old, has gotten COVID and they've been fine. I don't think it's possible.
It's because suddenly their whole medical team goes and
Well,
cranks into
absolutely.
overdrive.
Yeah, they get their supply of like illegal supplements. They're Alex Jones supplements, and then they're just fine.
Yeah.
The perpetual war in Europe is next Friday meme.
We're gonna
I
put that
have
on the
no-
slide until something happens or it doesn't.
I don't know, man.
It's oh my God. Every
what's-
single major world leader has their own little what happens if Russia invades Ukraine plan.
And it's like, part of me is like, I do not care. And that's why I think that this is such like a null war effort, is because if something does happen, I don't think the world has done a good enough job preparing its citizens for this reality. In terms of, I don't think anyone besides Ukraine and Russia want to, like,
Oh.
the citizens of Ukraine and Russia
Hold
want
on.
to duke it out. All good?
My audio cut out for a split second. What did you say?
Oh, no, I was saying that I don't think anyone besides the citizens of Ukraine and Russia are actually going to want to duke it out. Because
Yeah, this is a hard war to sell to the American people.
Yeah, and it's like, there was no 9/11. There's no concentration camps. I mean that we know of. There's no there's no outward humanitarian injustice that's gonna get people riled up. I don't know.
Even like people that are in the middle of a humanitarian crisis, like you don't see the American people gunning for a war with China because like
No one really cares.
yeah, the news hasn't really made people care about it yet.
Yeah, and it's like there is precedent for Russia invading Ukraine and no one caring 8 years ago for Crimea. But no one cared then, so I don't know why everyone's really caring now.
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone's
it
just like, "Oh
wasn't
my God, Russia's gonna invade Ukraine!" And it's like, do you care? Like, you cared
no.
about Crimea too, or are you only caring this time because
The media's
NBC
decided
put their
because
scoop on the nightly news?
because Lockheed Martin and Boeing are running a little bit low on cash right now. They want some contracts. All right, so this is a really good meme I found. So the myth of consensual college attendance. So UC Berkeley is kind of in the middle of the city of Berkeley, and it's kind of right next to Oakland. And there's a lot of students that go to UC Berkeley. Their usual freshman class size is around 10,000. Let me just fact check that real quick.
Yeah, that's pretty decent for college.
Well, their class size is about oh fuck. Freshman class is I'm sorry, not that's not it at all. It's a 4,000 something. So it's a big school. I think it might be
Yeah,
10,000
that's the
overall,
point you're trying to make. But go on.
and they don't have enough housing for them on campus. So what the campus will do is they'll rent out apartments and try to get new development going in the city. And if you say the words new development to anyone in the East Bay, they're going to raise hell. And that's exactly what they did. So the residents, the Homeowners Association, is suing the University of California for there's too many admitted students. So they need and because a district judge found in their favor, the university needs to cut 3,000 students from its incoming freshman class unless a higher court intervenes. So a large
Couldn't
percentage of UC Berkeley students who were admitted who don't know it yet are not going to get an acceptance letter just because the homeowners association says no.
couldn't you just grandfather it in and say, all right, the next year's class is going to be 3,000 smaller?
Well, no, unless again, nothing's going to change unless the district court intervenes.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, we have the internet's kind of does its thing where it kind of goes off on NIMBYs for a while. But I mean, to be fair, the University of California is kind of encroaching on the neighborhood, but you're the one who moved into a college town, so
Yeah, you moved into Berkeley. You know exactly what's in Berkeley.
yeah, you know what you're getting yourself into. UC Berkeley has been around for a really, really, really long time. So it's not like the university just came in and is taking up space. It's been around since 1868.
Yeah, this is
It's
not
only
unpredictable that the university that has a large student body would grow to have a larger student body over time.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but I mean, it's only affecting this year, unless something else happens. So we'll find out.
Yeah.
And then the best news item. Okay, so you know how we said we were going to go to the school board meeting last week?
Yeah.
So we went to the school board meeting, and I'm not going to put the video up, but let's just say it could very easily have a World Star Hip Hop watermark at the bottom.
Oh my God.
So
Profanity
long story
screamed
short,
out.
two people announced they were doing lawsuits, and the meeting had to end because a bunch of parents mobbed the stage, and the police had to evacuate the school board.
It was, oh my God, it was ridiculous because,
These are
um,
adults. These are actual adults.
what was it, 20 something, 28, I want to say, different people signed up for community feedback. And that's like 3 minutes each. And there's a 30-minute time limit. So when it gets to someone who's obviously like anti mask and anti vax, and with their little group of anti mask and anti vax people in the back, because there were like 30 of them, and they call time, they immediately raise their shit. And they call
Eh,
the school board people cowards and say that they should be recalled even though it's not an elected position.
Let her speak, you cowards.
Oh my god, that's
That was
so
that
loud.
was the best quote of all time in that school board meeting. That was hell. Yeah, we took some documentation. I really wanted to have to wear bulletproof like press vests there, but I guess none of that really mattered because we're mask optional next week.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate that. I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to be saying, all right, you have to wear a mask, enforce it. And if you can't enforce it, be transparent with that.
Yeah, I mean, they were never really gonna win this battle was the problem, and it's like the masks have to end eventually, and I think they were kind of like, we can't make that decision because it's that then it's gonna seem like we're kind of bowing down to the parents, like the bullying parents. But I think at this point, it's it's February 21st. It's been almost 2 years. I'm still gonna wear a mask if for no other reason than I don't want to be associated with these people, but
Pretty
I guess
much.
you do you at this point.
I have to see how many people are wearing their masks on that first day.
I'll have to see, but probably for the rest of this year I'm gonna keep it on.
Yeah, because even now, what is it? Yesterday, you and me went out for dinner with a bunch of friends. There
Yeah,
were very few people in that area wearing their mask. Only one of the employees, and I think three out of our group of 10.
yeah. I mean, like at this point, I'm not quite sure what we're doing. I think the best thing to do at this point is if you're sick, wear a mask.
Yeah, that's all you can ask of people at this point.
That might be a little too much, but let's get into the content. Um, so
What
what's
is and
salt?
salt?
What is and salt? I didn't really I forget if I meant to do an or not.
I assume you would.
Okay.
Regardless, what is and salt?
So salt is it makes food taste good. It's
Until
the
it makes
only
food taste bad.
it's the only seasoning that British people know how to use.
Sometimes.
What do you mean sometimes?
With the sole exception of mushy peas.
Mushy peas. That's great. That's really great. But British food aside, so the concept of desalination. So you got seawater, you add electricity, and then now you have drinking water. I
Yeah,
don't. How did the nun stock photo even come into existence? What was the precedent for that?
I you know, I couldn't tell you, but
Do you know who that fella is in the middle?
oh, Electro Boom, very very
Okay,
iconic man.
I'm glad you know. Yes, my primary motive to be a double E major is Electro Boom.
And one thing,
Go for it.
what's the little brine going off to the side on step 4?
Oh, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I know what it
I just
is, but
I just included this. So right, we got salt water comes in, get the sediments out, give it through something. We'll get into what happens post treatment, where you get chlorinated and minerals to taste, and then you get water. But
yeah.
so how are we gonna separate the two? So there's two ways. You can use reverse osmosis, which is you pressurize the water and force it through a membrane to get rid of the saltiness, or you just do what the sun does, heat up the water and collect the steam. They're both about the same level of energy intensiveness because the bond between the water and the sodium chloride is like they really like each other. That's the problem.
Yeah, water
Anyway,
likes being salinated. I can immediately see some pros and cons to each. Obviously,
yeah.
reverse osmosis and osmosis need
Then
some
you got to
amount
deal
of
with
energy to push the water through.
yeah, but then I guess the thing I could see was with reverse osmosis versus evaporation, you need to have the membranes and you need to keep replacing them.
That's also the thing too, but then also at
But
the same time, it's much faster than just putting out big basins of water in giant glass rooms with sloped roofs and like scraping away the salt every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of an energy intensive standpoint, we'll get into this later, but evaporation, if you're using the sun, almost makes more sense. Like in terms of using large swaths of land in the desert, pumping seawater in and capturing the steam. Obviously, it's using more land.
It's more passive though. You don't have to be as invasive with, highly salinated brine water.
Yeah, of course. All right, moving on. Energy consumption. So we got an energy issue right now. It's our very special boy Exxon wants to keep raising prices, and our very special boy Joe Biden doesn't want to cap prices. So energy's a big concern, and when it comes to desalination, it is the most energy intensive way to get water. So obviously, the easiest ways are groundwater and surface water. They're just there. You just pump them out. Recycled water is super easy because at that point, you're basically just cleaning it up. And if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, your water is about as energy intensive as getting groundwater because it's closer to you. So brackish water desalination in terms of um, like groundwater relatively close to the ocean, so it's a little salty. That's about twice as energy intensive as importing water in NorCal. Recycled water using a membrane, that's about the same as brackish. And then imported water through the Colorado River Aqueduct, which we talked about, is about 6,000 kilowatt hours per million gallons. Imported water using the State Water Project, that's getting it all the way from Northern California to Southern California, is about 12,000. And seawater desalination can be upwards of 16 to 18,000 kilowatt hours per million gallons. That is a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's an
Just
incredibly large amount compared to how much you could get for surface water and even just like for other imported, like sending water in bottles. Not
and
even
just for some
in, yeah, my God.
And just for some context, for seawater desalination, wholesale energy prices in Southern California are about. I mean, I imagine it's definitely different for like a big user, like a desalination plant, but it's about 15, 16 cents per kilowatt hour. Um, so that's just a little bit of a edumacation.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
sounds
the
about right.
most energy intensive form of getting water.
Interesting.
And then the brine. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say about brine.
Oh my God, the brine. We gotta, so after you desalinate water, you immediately have to address, you have some pure water. That's great. But you also have
Wow.
some impurities, which all concentrate themselves into what's called brine. Makes sense, salty water. And when you have to deal with the brine, you have to think of two big things. Where are you going to put it? And is it going to leach out into the environment where you put it? And most of the time, the answer for where we're going to put it is we don't care, just dump it. And the answer for is it going to leach out is absolutely. And all of a sudden, everything around there is eutrophic and cannot grow or let anything live there.
The main issue in my mind that I see with brine is that it's obviously a very voluminous toxic waste, and it's not really toxic in the sense that we consider, glowing ooze. The thing with brine disposal is that it's fine if you disperse it over a super large area because it's basically just concentrated seawater. So if you have it dispersed over like millions of square miles, it's not going to matter because it's just diffusing into the ocean regularly. It would make it's the same thing as if water was evaporating off the surface of the ocean. The issue is in most cases it's just an outlet that goes straight into the ocean. So all that it's regionally affecting the ocean environment such that the area immediately around is suffering massively.
Yeah, it just creates one massive point. It's called point source pollution for a reason because when you see a destroyed ecosystem, you can pick up the pieces and you can realize that all of it is coming from one singular source.
Yeah, and the ocean is extremely hard to pollute just because of how big it is, but it is easy to regionally pollute the ocean. So, because I mean, obviously there's a high concentration of desalination plants around the coast because, that's where ocean water is, but especially in, hold on, laser pointer. In the fucking Mediterranean, there's a lot more because especially in Saudi Arabia, that's one of the only places they're getting water. And currently with desalination, the best desalination plants are about 50% efficient. So if you take in 2 gallons of ocean water, you're going to get 1 gallon of brine and 1 gallon of fresh water. But regionally in that ocean environment, you're just destroying everything.
Yeah, and especially in island nations where there's not as much land to dispose of it. At least in Saudi Arabia, if you really felt like it, you could dig a giant hole in the desert and sell it off to the consumer as the big saltwater pool, like the second Dead Sea or whatever they even do in Saudi Arabia. But in tiny island nations where their only real source is seawater and they have to desalinate it, where are they putting it? The island is
Yeah,
only a few square miles.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just looking at this map of how many desalination plants, especially are in Hawaii, are in Samoa, Guam, it's just if you're regionally polluting the ocean and the entire island is the region, it makes swimming and recreation and fishing immediately around the island almost impossible.
Yeah, all of your outputs immediately go down to about zero, considering that most of
Mhm.
these places export fruit and fish. And in the case of Tuvalu and, Micronesia, internet domains. But that can't work for everyone.
Anyway, besides brine, it's expensive. So we talked about electricity, and this is the price per acre foot in California. And seawater desalination is 2,200 to 4,300 dollars per acre foot. And then remember, the acre foot is a unit of volume, as in 1 acre of area times 1 foot of height. That is about the amount one household uses in about half a year. And groundwater is super cheap. In some parts of California, you can get it for $90 an acre foot for some comparison. So the further south you go in California, obviously the more expensive the water is because you're having to ship your water further. But desalination is really expensive, especially because the amount of electricity you're using, the amount of infrastructure you need for it. Anything else?
I don't know, that about covers it. Seawater is exponentially more expensive to deal with and desalinate and transport than if you had the virtue of just having the water underneath you or next to you.
Shoot. All right, so let's talk about this, shall we? So, public versus private utilities. So, in the US, most of the electric grid, well, rather, where the people are, is privately owned, funded by private interests and corporate greed. So, this is the map of where electricity is investor owned. So, naturally, all of Texas, much of the East Coast, California, Southeast, pretty much everywhere besides the boonies. And the publicly owned is going to be pretty much everywhere where there's not people, because it's a lot easier to publicly fund electricity because you can have large co-ops that is just kind of the sole purpose is getting energy to these people who live miles and miles away from each other. So then I have average monthly utility cost by state. Guess which states have the cheapest utilities?
The ones that are publicly owned.
The ones that have publicly owned utilities. So here's a picture of the Texas wholesale electricity price during the deep freeze of 2021. Momentarily, well, it was for about a day, ERCOT's real-time price for kilowatt hour went up to about $17,000 per kilowatt hour, when it's usually, as I said, in the tens of cents. anywhere between 0 to 20 cents, depending on the time. So that's how consumers at the end of that deep freeze, when someone they know may have died or their house burned down, they got a $20,000 electricity bill in the mail, and God forbid they had direct withdrawal, which basically wiped out their entire savings. And Texas hasn't changed anything because the freer the market, the freer the people. Isn't that right?
Isn't that right? Yeah. It
Yes.
seems as if having a free market might negatively affect consumers and positively affect investors and
You know
shareholders.
what? It almost seems as though something is essential to life, and the modern world as electricity shouldn't be controlled by corporate interests and greed. But is podcasting praxis? We will find out.
Dang, they weren't lying. Sometimes those assets can be exploited.
Um, Thinking of a NoFX lyric right now. The People's Revolution is going to be a podcast. I don't even know what this says.
I I have no idea.
I was just looking for some like ridiculous workers rise up propaganda.
Oh yeah, of course.
Anyway, there's Chairman Mao, one of the 5 pickled communists.
Oh my god, you were telling me about this just the other day.
Yeah,
So
there's
who is
5
it?
of them. So
Lenin,
it's
Mao, Kim Il Sung, Kim
Kim
Jong
Jong
Il.
Il, and hold on, I gotta go in order. So it's and Ho Chi Minh. That's the other one.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah, so there are the 5 pickled communists. There are more than 4. There are 5. Who will be the 6th?
Biden. I would love to have Biden in like a solid glass tomb in the
For all we
middle of
know,
the
that
House
could
of
have happened
Representatives.
already. So you know how like they can, like people on the internet will like put like soak a hot dog in epoxy, and like a year later it looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like if Russia's spending like $1 million a year, like keeping Lenin alive after 98 years, why can't they just do that again? Like just like coat Lenin in epoxy.
You see, it's kind of like
Uh-huh.
applying a new set of paint, except if you
Oh
mess
god,
it
yeah,
up
got
and
it.
get a chip in the paint, you get executed by the state.
Yeah, it's kind of dicey. I mean, like I want to go and like give Kim Jong Un my best like pickling tips I found online, but that might be dicey. I can't damage them, otherwise I will damage the founder of the only person to ever score an 18 in golf.
Oh my god. What an iconic move by the state.
He got the first person in history to get an 18 in golf on their first time. He also invented the taco, right?
I think, yeah, what was even the story? He invented the taco and the burrito and then sold off the idea or something like that.
How do you say how do you sell off an idea?
I
Because
don't
if
I
someone
might not have that right, but I think it was
because
something along the lines of that.
if someone's gonna no, the concept. Oh, excuse me. Because if someone's gonna sell an idea to someone, I'm sure the buyer wants to know about the idea beforehand, so they make sure they're getting their money's worth. But if they know about the idea, then what's the point of even buying it? Maybe I'm thinking
Yeah,
too far. Maybe I'm thinking too far
I
into
think we're
this
reading a little
like
bit too much into it.
bizarro lands state propaganda. Anyway, um, so this is an interesting graph. So total energy consumption by state. So this is literally everything that consumes energy happening in the state. Texas is the most energy intensive state. It's using 12,898 trillion British thermal units. Wow. I have no scale for that.
British thermal units, I think, are the amount of energy it takes to. I want to say it's like raise the temperature of 1 cubic centimeter of water a Celsius. Hold on.
That's a calorie. A BTU is 1,055 joules. So that is
Oh yeah, defined
that's
formally for the heat required to raise the temperature of 1 pound of water by 1 Fahrenheit.
that's the same amount of energy as dropping a 20-pound object off of 3 flights of stairs.
And Texas does that about 12,800 times.
12,898,000 trillion times.
Oh shoot, yeah.
Yeah, this is in trillions.
I missed the trillion, yeah.
Oh, that's an important one to remember. And then obviously it kind of goes by population. So California, New York, Illinois, Florida, and Ohio, some of the big ones. But then domestic water use, I found it's most interesting that water use is highest in the most water scarce states.
Yeah.
It's not really surprising if you look at it because those are like big farming sectors, especially for California and Texas. Um, and then there's just a lot of people, I guess, because what I've found in this podcasting is that water use is kind of an exponential curve based on population. So the more people that you have, you're going to use more water
Yeah,
in
that about
terms of just other
tracks.
stuff. Because if you have um 4 times the population, you're going to need 4 times the sewage system. You're going to need 4 times the amount of sea worlds, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Things that
I
use
get your
water.
logic. But yeah.
Let's see what states have the lowest. Iowa,
Hmm.
Vermont, with Delaware. I think Delaware is the lowest. It's 61 gallons per day per person.
So those are all states that have decently sparse populations, frequent rainfall, and not much of a reason to have to worry about other things. I bet if you
This graph,
overlaid this with like septic tank usage versus sewage usage, it would also have a somewhat correlation.
I'm pretty sure with this graph, they're just guesstimating the total amount of water used in the state and dividing it by the number of people. So it's not necessarily how much I'm using to shower or
Yeah,
whatever. So I
California
think
might use less water, but they have so many more people.
yeah, that's why I think Nebraska is so high too. There's like barely any people, but there's a lot of farming. Huh.
Yeah.
Nevada, Idaho, and Utah lead the nation. Isn't that nice?
Hawaii makes sense. Wow, Idaho is very high.
So the point I'm trying to make with this is that states near the coast generally are using a lot of water, at least in the US and especially on the West Coast, and they're also using a lot of energy. So my point that I'm trying to make with that is you're using a lot of there's already a lot of energy going into freshwater extraction, whether it be from groundwater, whether it be from desalination that already exists, because as we saw way back, um, wait, hither, there's already a lot of desalination in the U.S., in Texas, the East Coast, West Coast. So it's happening already a lot in Saudi Arabia and Israel. So Saudi Arabia is mostly using the thermal desalination method. So you're using the just heat water up and it evaporates instead of using the membranes. I I almost like the desalination idea better because the membranes are like big bulky pieces of plastic that need to be replaced like very frequently.
Hmm.
And definitely there's a cleaning process for them, but you can only clean them so many times before they're not effective anymore.
Yeah, eventually things get caught in the membranes and the efficiency is decreased, and you just are better off like saying screw it and buying more.
And I imagine that you could pretty easily, and they do pretty easily reuse the salt. That you have to scrape off the bottom of the heating element, and that's just a matter of can sell overpriced sea salt from Saudi Arabia to people in the Midwest. I can
Yeah.
the fancy sea salt industry has like the Midwest kitchens by a chokehold.
Every person I know has one of those glass containers of like pink
Pink
Himalayan
Himalayan
salt.
salt, yes, and it's like it. I just use regular salt, man. I'm not a salt connoisseur. It all tastes the same.
I use regular salt. Maybe I use flaky salt for like baked potatoes and stuff like that.
The one thing
But
I will say though
yeah,
is I got like a bag of like Alaskan sea salt as a gift. It's like smoked and like holy moly, that stuff is like actually fire. But like you need to use it on the right stuff.
I'm one of those people that uses the Malden sea salt where it's like the
Ooh.
super big flakes, and it's really really good on like savory food to have like that
I
crunchy salt to it.
I could see that. I mean, I guess I'm not like I don't know, man. Savory foods are few and far between for me because like I have the best eating habit in the world, which is I basically live on maybe 400 calories worth of bread per day throughout the week, and then I pretty much eat everything that exists on the weekend, and it seems to work out.
Hmm. That's. I mean, that's certainly a new one.
Equilibrium. Well, no, it's because what happens is I'll get home, and then of course I have a ton of stuff I need to do, and I'll basically just be working from when I get home to when I have to go to bed, and then I'll be like, oh, I haven't eaten since I got home. Well, I'm kind of hungry, and it's like 10:30, and I'm like, oh, well, screw it, I'll just eat in the morning.
I'll just eat. You ever have sleep for dinner? My
I
God.
have had sleep for dinner. Anyway, then how's California doing this, right? So most of their desalination plants are public-private co-ops. So Poseidon Water builds a lot of them using private capital, and then they slowly get paid off by a public utility co-op for their services.
Hmm.
But as I was saying, most of them exist in Southern California, and there's only really a couple in the Bay Area. They were missing a few there. And this is just kind of more so reiterating that it's a lot more expensive to use desalination. But brackish is definitely a good happy medium between less energy intensive desalination and lower cost while still being, practical.
Yeah.
And the desalination is very attractive because it's it, it's stable. It's California has a extremely unstable water supply. One year you might basically having 101 be entirely washed out, and then one year you might have nothing. You might have pretty much no water to deal with. So this isn't really a consideration that farmers have to think about, but really it's in their eyes, as long as you have electricity and a desalination plant, you're guaranteed water. And that's definitely very attractive to municipalities, especially in the Southern California Water District, that are looking at the state water project, like checking its notes and saying we can fulfill 1% of our deliveries this year, and are kind of just saying, well, what are we doing then?
Yeah. Desalination is seen as more reliable, even though it's less efficient than hoping you get a good year and you have plenty of a snow cap.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, this year Southern California does have a much better snowpack than Northern California. It's usually the other way around. But we will see. We're headed into the wettest month of the wet season. About half of California's rainfall happens in March. Um, so we'll see. We could very easily get 2 or 3 atmospheric rivers that completely change the game for this water season, or we couldn't. But either way, even if we don't, we are still much better off than last year. So it's at the very least going to be better than last year, but that
Yeah,
was an
it's always
extremely low
anyone's
bar.
bet. Predicting weather beyond 3 or 4 days in the future is nearly impossible.
Like I really want to start like a
Hmm.
like an online betting for the atmospheric river forecast. And it's
Huh.
just like me and a bunch of other dweebs get online and are just like, all right, let's all right. I have $20 on category 3 atmospheric river on March 3rd.
My God.
I would do that. I would actually do that. I am headed to Sequoia National Forest next month, and I could very easily get snowed in there, but I'll take some nice photos. I'll put them on here.
Nice.
But environmental cost. So weighing this against what the state is mostly using for electricity. This was in 2017, so for states like California, the balance has changed a lot in that time, but for pretty much everywhere else, it's kind of the same. So I didn't know Illinois used mostly nuclear until I
Oh yeah, they're
researched this.
incredibly progressive in terms of nuclear usage.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, obviously the nuclear plants are like way out in the middle of nowhere, so it doesn't really matter. But like, it's just like, let's go Illinois. It makes me feel a little bit better about the coal train that goes behind my house every day.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's do you want to know where that's going?
Oh, where
I
is it
I looked
going?
so go on to Google Maps for me and look into Lake Michigan, and you can see like a little pimple going into Lake Michigan, um, right around the border between Indiana and Illinois.
All right. Yeah, let's see it.
And then turn on satellite, and you can see how just all black.
Oh yeah, huh?
So apparently that is like a big port where like coal gets shipped out to like Michigan and Wisconsin.
Yeah, Suncoke technology. That would do it.
Yeah. And there's also some coal plants there, but I mean obviously that's Indiana's problem. But that's where it's going. I always wonder that because I'm like, if Illinois doesn't really use that much coal, why is there a coal train that goes behind my house every day?
It's
Anyway,
because everyone else does.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of states that can use hydroelectric. I'm surprised that South Dakota uses hydroelectric because in order to have hydroelectric, you need to have water and you need to have height. And as far as I'm concerned, South Dakota has neither.
Yeah, it's curious. Maybe it's just that they use so little of everything else that the hydroelectric just kind of weighs it all out.
I love how we apparently haven't unlocked West Virginia yet.
Oh yeah, West Virginia is incredibly entrenched in coal usage and coal
It's just
lobbies. You
it's
should look
just
it up sometime.
completely black. Like it's completely like it's showing the relative amounts per state. It's just completely black. I don't like. And then obviously I think South Carolina's doing nuclear a little bit better than us, but California is kind of at the lightest end of that. They're mostly using solar and hydropower, but obviously for hydropower it depends on the year. Um, this past winter there was for a few seconds California was getting 95% renewable energy
Huh.
because
Interesting.
the composition of a state's energy depends on about 1.5 billion different factors. It depends on how many people are plugged in, the temperature, what people are using, as people in Palo Alto charging their electric cars, is was there enough snowpack in Trinity Dam so they can turn on the hydropower? Like it depends on so many different factors that and it's almost impossible to determine because California is all in the same interconnect. You could have a power plant in Salton City supplying electricity to Reading, and then you could very easily have a power plant in Sacramento only giving power to people in Sacramento.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good point.
Um, yeah, so it's just at their like main base of operations. It's like PG&E and Edison, like their main center. I guess they're able to determine that. I love how Hawaii is just like using oil.
Oh yeah. What is it? Island nations do that a lot. They just kind of have generators and import oil because it's the cheapest one to transport,
Yeah, I
and it
mean
has to be some sort of already
it's pretty
refined
energy
form
dense.
of electricity because I mean you're not going to put a coal processing plant on your island.
Yeah, I mean it's like what would you almost use? I mean Hawaii could very easily use hydropower. I mean Hawaii gets a lot of snow.
I mean, it's possible.
My
I don't know if they
my
have that
boss,
infrastructure yet. Is the thing.
yeah, probably not. It'd probably be super expensive to get all that stuff there. But my boss was in Hawaii and he was talking about how there's a bunch of snow there and it's like their microclimates make California look like Chicago. So like what'll happen is you'll start in the city and then it's like a 10-minute drive and then you can go to the beach and then a 10-minute drive and you can be up in the snowy mountain. It's more than 10 minutes, but cool stuff.
Yeah, cool stuff.
And then obviously you have the problem of the brine. So in states that are using the most desalination plants, for the most part, they're using natural gas, and they also have the problem of brine.
Hmm.
So really, really, savior or bust is kind of the main question, and I'm gonna go with not neither. It's expensive, it's energy intensive, and it pollutes. It kind of sounds like electricity production. Um, I did the math and I didn't find like a fancy graph for it, but if you do the math, the amount of energy it requires to desalinate the amount of water one household uses in a day is about the same amount of energy as the household uses in 1 hour. So just thinking about electricity in terms of energy costs is very useful because water is derived from energy. Whether it's the sun evaporating water off the ocean and dumping it on a mountain, or whether it's pumped out of the ground or whatever, it's still using energy. And I think that in terms of resolving California's water crisis or anywhere's water crisis, it's part of the patchwork of solutions. There's no silver bullet to stop climate change, and there's no silver bullet to stop the water crisis. So it being an option in terms of if a water year is just so bad that it's like we need to make all of our own deliveries for our residential customers, it becomes a very attractive option.
Yeah, it's tough to weigh out environmental costs and consumer costs at the same time because you're bound to neglect one. You know, what's best for the environment isn't necessarily the cheapest for consumers and shareholders, and what's best for the consumer is almost always worst for the environment.
And water, and you also need to think about what's best for humanity. Humanity needs water, and no amount of water conservation or other stuff is going to distract from the fact that water is getting more scarce and we need water. That's non-negotiable. So getting to the point where municipalities are going to start needing to be less dependent on one overarching state water project to fulfill their needs, because that may have worked in the 60s, but it's not going to work now. And especially when over the concept of electric grid defection, where it's legal in a lot of places to completely disconnect from the power grid, where you don't have to be dependent on the power grid. If you have solar and you have batteries, you can just say I want out. And I think that's something that different municipalities are going to need to start consider. I can produce my own water. And also it's getting to the point where does desalination have to be as dirty as it is? You know, the technology is getting better. Can the brine production get more efficient? Can we figure out to, instead of just, how about we just take out all of the salt and then like put the salt somewhere else, because we use salt for a lot of different things? Is that something that can be figured out? Or if you want to get rid of the electricity aspect, there are passive desalinators that basically just run the water through pipes over reflectors that just capture energy from the sun, kind of like a solar cooker.
Interesting.
So, will it save California? No. But is it part of saving California? I'd say yes. So
Yeah.
there's the long answer, clocking in at 47 minutes and 25 seconds.
Well, what's going on next week?
Next week, I think this might be a good thing to finally cover, but climate denialism. I want to start getting a little bit more into the social aspects of climate change. So whether it's instead getting away from just purely talking about the environment, it might be a good idea to talk about the people. So we're
Yeah.
going to get into climate denialism, and CO2 is not a pollutant. Plants breathe CO2. Okay. You're right so far. There will be no life on this earth without CO2. Okay, you got it. Socialist fascist lies are poison, killing jobs, businesses, and economies. Stop the tyranny. They messed up that last part.
Yeah. That last part kind of took a dive.
Yeah, the last part you had us in the first half.
Who is the H and what would H do?
What would Houdini do? What would Harry Potter? It's in the Harry Potter font, so that's kind of throwing me off.
Yeah. I hope it's not that
What
H.
what would Bush? Hold on, I'm trying to think. Because what was this? McCain or Romney? No. Um. H, is it like H Bush, like George H.W. Bush?
Yeah.
Um. If that
Hmm.
if you're a friend of the show and we're at this protest and want to tell me what that sign actually said, I'd be much appreciated. Um, I love this guy with the I Heart CO2 sign,
It's a very
and
simple point.
we'll get. I'm gonna basically turn this tangent into an entire episode next time, but with pollution, you'll very rarely hear someone, even the most staunch climate deniers, say, even Trump said this. He said that he wants clean water for everyone and clean air for everyone. I mean, that's fairly non-negotiable. But pollution in the time of 50, 40 years ago was more so garbage piling up on the side of freeways. It was more so like brown toxic water. For the most part, that's not really continuing. You know, litter and very overt pollution like that have declined substantially. Pollution nowadays is a lot more abstract. It's a lot harder to like directly attribute to one thing, and it's a lot less visible.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to connect. It's hard to make the connection between a hurricane and an inefficient truck, but it's easy to make the connection between like polluted water and wanting to stop littering.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
any
that's
shout
all I
outs?
got. Shout outs to President's Day.
Oh man, shout out to President's Day. We love
Shout
our
out
3-day
to
weekend.
President's Day. This is like the only no this sorry, the second 3-day and only 3-day weekend of third quarter. It's this and MLK Day. Man, third quarter just goes so bad.
It's always so bad. I always say there's
Like
a drag because there's just no 3-day weekends and you're coming off of winter break.
third quarter does me so nasty every year.
Oh my
And
god.
it's like that's when the seasonal depression hits the hardest. That's when, you know, just the
It's when you have
grind
to
hits
ask
the
yourself
hardest.
if the seasonal depression is starting to turn into regular depression. And then
It's
fourth
it's a
quarter
it's
hits
a
and it's like, oh no, it was just seasonal.
yeah. That's the thing, because like Chicago, I can I'm fine if there's like snow on the ground, but when we're in this point where for Chicago, most of late February and March tends to be s- it's a weekly cycle where it snows about an inch, it gets really really cold, and then it gets really really warm. But in that time where it's really really warm, everything's just super gray and sad. So you can't really enjoy it, and then it gets really really cold again. And then that basically continues until mid-April.
Yeah, it's
So,
weird.
but how it's gonna go is, so the way I see it, we've got 5 more weeks until spring break, and then we got 4 more weeks until AP exams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
that
say
that's
that.
that's gonna be a rough one. I have 3 AP exams in one day.
I've got, oh wow, which ones?
I didn't think they were allowed to do that. It's English language and then both physics C.
Those are classes that are like possible to be taken at the same time. Like at least overlap the ones that no one will ever
No,
take at the same time, like
it's
art and
not,
history and
because
macro micro.
not many barely any juniors take physics C. So that was the assumption they were making. Like junior AP English, okay, probably isn't going to be at the same time.
Hmm.
I'll
Frankly,
see what I can do, because like I might be able to get a makeup done. I don't know, but that's going to be rough, because I can't even live with AP English being last. That's first.
oh my god. I think for me, what is it? For me, it's English and then U.S. history, then physics, then environmental science. So I've got my easy one last.
Okay. Yeah, the technicality they're getting away with is that physics C, it's 2 AP exams. They're completely separate, but each one's only an hour and a half. So that's how they get
Yeah,
away with having 3 in one day, but like that's still kind of a violation because it's still the same amount of content as a full length exam.
they're
I'll see
just
what
trying
I
to
can
pretend
do.
that they're not stressing kids out when they are.
The college board, you need to take our AP credits. My sister is applying for medical schools now, and interestingly enough, a lot of medical schools don't accept AP credit. So
Hmm.
like if you want to go to like, I don't know, let's say I was applying to I don't know, Harvard Medical School, and I was like, okay, cool. So I knew I wanted to be a doctor in high school, so I took AP Bio, I took AP Psychology, and then it's my freshman year in college. Then I took 200 level Bio, and I got the Gen Ed out in high school, and then now I am taking the higher level classes. Well, a medical school doesn't want your experience with Gen Bio to be in high school, so they'll say no, we're not going to accept that AP transfer credit.
Yeah, that makes sense. They would accept gen eds, but they wouldn't accept ones that are like tangentially related to their stuff because like you're about to be a doctor. You did that in sophomore year of high school. We don't know how good you are at it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, and I'm really surprised that's not a bigger deal in high school. Saying if you think you're going to go to grad school, a lot of this isn't going to be covered. And I mean, like in my case, trying to go to a double E major, I think I'm just going to like so physics. What I'd be doing from here is I did AP Physics 1 last year, which is the 100 level physics. I'm doing both Physics C, which is both 200 levels. So I'd be going straight into a 300 level, presumably my freshman year. And for
Yeah.
math, and for math, it's like you'd be doing Calc BC. I'm doing Calc BC this year, so then it'd be that, which is Calc 1 and 2, the 100 levels, and then I'd be doing Calc 3 next year, which is the 200 level, but that's through Moraine Valley. So like it just depends on so many different factors. And I mean, it's hard to have a high school kid. Okay, if you know what college you want to go to and know which major you want to go to, okay, now which grad school do you want to go to? Like that's a lot harder to have a high school kid figure out.
Yeah, and then also at the same time, like I feel like some of the AP credit requirements are made in the mindset that, oh, no kid will ever get a 5 on this. Because if you look at U of I, if you got a 5 on French AP, that counts for all 100 and 200 level French credits.
I
You
mean,
immediately get rolled into French 301 when you go there.
well, it's assuming that if you got a 5 on this AP exam, you're qualified enough that you could have done that. And the reason why a single 3 credit hour equivalent AP class like might get you 9 credit hours worth of prerequisite, it's just the fact that enough content, because like if I'm the registrar trying to make an AP equivalency chart and I look at the syllabi for the classes I have at my university and then I look at the syllabus for the AP, you know, it's like if they kind of match up, it's assumed that the same content's going to be covered. So what's the point of wasting your money?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to address.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But in the meantime, I think that's just about it for
This
us.
is on your back. The point of contention is how they act.
You're right.
Where you draw the line will set you free. The debate is over.